This episode brought to you by Peter Wood's Museum of the Impossible.
What's a Museum of the Impossible? It's gonna be like Harry Potter meets Ripley's Believe It or Not. It'll be a one-of-a-kind, themed, interactive space where people can experience the impossible. But I need your help. To get the project started, I've set up a Patreon over at museumoftheimpossible.com. If you're able to throw a few bucks my way each month, we can build it together. Thanks for your support, and I can't wait to welcome you into the Museum of the Impossible. Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today is a Baltimore area magician who performs, teaches, and argues with me about all sorts of artistic minutiae. We might even get into some of that today, so please join me in welcoming Timothy Carver. Welcome to the parlor and the podcast. Thanks for coming to hang out here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for this because selfishly, I have questions for friends that I don't know the answer to. And so anytime this is an excuse for ostensibly we're recording this and other people are, going to be listening to it. But I don't know a lot about your magic origin story. So I thought we should start there. Where do you think the beginning of that is?
14 years ago.
Okay.
I'm 24 for reference. I was about 10. And I had a passing interest in magic, as most 10-year-olds will at some point. Mm-hmm. I had seen Penn and Teller's Magic Mystery Tour DVD my dad got me from the library. I remember having that for far too long, so I think we just kept that copy.
Okay.
But that definitely got me started in interest, but I didn't take it seriously until my little sister Juliana had come home with a magic kit.
Okay.
She had gotten this huge box, and we found out it was a magic kit inside, and she didn't know how any of it worked, so she asked me to watch the DVD, read the book, learn all the tricks, and then teach them to her.
Okay.
And we ended up doing a magic show that Christmas.
Oh, that's cool. Do you remember which magic kit it was?
It was a Phantasma
Okay.
super kit. I remember it had the I don't know what it's a trick by what is his name? Remember his name?
Do you know what? Can you describe the trick?
It's a ring penetration in a plastic box. He's a New York magician. He makes a lot of the
Carbone.
Carbone, yeah.
There we go.
Angelo
Okay.
Carbone, exactly.
Yep. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. His tricks. I still have it, as a matter of fact.
Oh, neat.
Several of them.
Okay.
Fantastic trick, and that was a favorite of ours, as well as the is built with soup cans, but it's like a passy bottles in there, and
neat. Okay.
linking rings and a Svengali deck, all the standard things, just made of plastic and
sure, yeah,
great kit actually.
Well, and what do you think was it like? Do you have other hobbies that came and went? Like
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, most of my hobbies were more influenced by wanting to entertain my little sister.
Okay.
I learned skateboarding and roller skating and juggling and pogo stick.
Okay.
Rubik's cubes, hula hooping, yo-yos. I think I already said that. No. I went through a bunch of different things to try and keep her entertained.
Okay.
And magic is the one that she kept wanting to see more of. Which worked really well. And then I took a liking to it myself pretty quickly after that, and haven't stopped since.
But you think it was that initial, like, if you had gotten the same reaction to magic as you got to pogo sticking, you probably wouldn't still be in it, right?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean,
that's cool. I mean, like, because that was, I think, I mean, what it sounds like, early on, the audience was important for you. Like the fact that it's something that you're sharing with your sister as opposed to a thing you're doing just exclusively for yourself, that's an interesting, but then so I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but like, one of the things that I know about you is that you love getting down into the nitty gritty of specifically like sleight of hand type stuff. And that can be very, sort of just a personal a hobby that you enjoy, like it doesn't necessarily have to be shared with people. You enjoy mastering a certain sleight of hand type thing. Do you remember how that sort of changed in you, like from the magic kit into that?
So I went from magic kits and kind of do-it-yourself tricks that you could buy. I bought most of my first tricks from Amazon and Walmart and things.
Okay.
I remember thinking it was for some reason I had this impression that it was very difficult to get your hands on a bicycle deck of cards.
Oh, okay.
We didn't have any at my house.
Okay.
So I remember the first one I got was a scorpion deck, if you remember those.
I do,
the black and yellow bicycle decks. I got that for my 16th birthday.
Okay.
This was, a big jump before I got into sleight of hand proper.
Right.
So I'd been practicing with, trick decks of cards and all that stuff.
Okay.
And then when I started studying sleight of hand, it was because of several YouTube channels. You're going from Jay Sankey's YouTube channel, 52 Cards, one called Miss Mag, if you remember those.
No, I don't.
He taught like mathematical tricks. He was just
cool.
a pair of hands on a screen, and he would just do a trick, explain it, and then the video was over. There was no character. It was just always some, Aronson stack type of trick.
Okay.
Always that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But then I started studying real sleight of hand after I met real magicians at the magic shop.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a guest you've had on here before, Jeff Eline.
Right.
Taught me better techniques for double lifts and false shuffles and like real technique. He was influential and still is.
And what made the change from Amazon to a brick and mortar shop?
I met a magician by accident.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Friend of ours, Ken Kaplan.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He was doing a balloon gig outside of a giant store where we were invited as guests because my sister was getting this special honors thing where they were advertising. She was one of the sponsors for it.
Cool.
And Kenny was hired to do the balloons for it.
Okay.
And I'm standing in line waiting to get a balloon for myself and for my little sister, who was, I think, doing a dunk tank.
Okay.
Time. She wasn't in the dunk tank. She was throwing the balls at
it's it sounds like a sister thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it was great fun. So she asked me to wait for the balloons, and I'm waiting in line.
Okay.
My dad's at the end of the line chatting with Ken.
Yeah. Okay.
And saying, "Don't I recognize you from a magic show you had done?" And of course, my ears perk up. I hear magic show.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I go finally get in front of him. And I ask, can you do a magic trick? And he says, "Sorry, kid, I'm doing balloons today. I didn't bring anything."
Okay.
I said, "Oh, that's okay. I have a deck of cards." And I just
nice.
put him on the spot.
Yeah.
And he does card to pocket. Blew
Okay.
my mind completely.
Okay.
No idea how he did it.
And your deck.
And my deck of cards.
That makes all the difference. Yeah.
Makes a world of difference.
Cool. Okay.
And I was like, I have to learn this. I've never seen anything like it.
Okay.
And he says, "Well, go to the magic shop." And he puts his phone number on the box of playing cards.
Oh, no.
And he says, "Here, just give me a call. We'll go to the magic shop and we'll hang out." And that's where I met Jeff Eline, I met you, met Howard.
Sure. Okay.
It's never stopped since.
That's so cool. Yeah. No, it is something like we've lamented with, magicians of my age where like we remember brick and mortar, but we also see the benefits of the internet. Absolutely. And like, we're not going to just say that there's only one right way because we see the pros and cons of both. But man, there is something about being in the same room with other magicians hanging out that you just don't get from an online forum, whatever that might be,
Of course.
So, and especially that sort of like, you didn't, I mean, at that time, you didn't know what the name was of the thing that Kenny was doing. So you couldn't even Google it. Like you have to connect with a physical person to do
Absolutely.
that, So then when you got to the magic shop, how tempted were you by like all of the fancy looking boxes and containers?
Oh boy. I was completely mesmerized. I mean, the one that grabbed my attention was, I had researched the magic shop months up until, because there was a huge space of time, at least what it felt like to me at the time.
Sure. 4 days, but yeah.
Something like that. Between finding out about the magic shop and actually going there for the first time.
Okay.
And I had watched the YouTube video links that are at the bottom. And as you know, one of those links that's still there is Jeff Eline doing a trick with a blank deck.
Right. Sure.
A trick he's rather famous for in the magic community and at large. I remember because again, I'm basing this off of what I saw Kenny do. I
Right.
hand him my deck of cards and say, turn this blank.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's funny.
And he's, we never even talked. I was like, you're famous, you do this.
Right. Okay.
And he was like, sorry, I'm not quite ready for it. Give me a second.
Okay.
What I didn't know is he went around the corner, switched the deck, because again, I'm not thinking like this.
Right.
And then he does the routine backwards.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So in the classic, for our friend listening, if you're not familiar with, it's called mental photography, and the classic version of it is you start with a blank deck of cards, front and back, and then you magically make it turn into a regular deck with printed fronts and printed backs.
Right.
But if you want, and I mean that's clearly what Jeff did, was doing it in reverse for you.
Right.
That's pretty crazy. And now, how do you remember how that ended? Like,
My dad filmed it. So
okay.
There's actual footage
cool.
of me reacting to this.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
It completely blew my mind because he did it.
Sure.
It was a very quick initial change, and then he went into his regular routine because you only need that one moment to change it blank.
Yeah.
And then he went into his standard routine where, he got the cards from the UNS, it's playing card company in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
And I've loved that routine ever since. I bring it up all the time. It's one of my favorites.
Well, now they've moved to Erlanger, Kentucky,
Right.
and so it
doesn't
just
sound
messes
quite
up
as
his
nice.
whole routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't need to know that, though.
That's okay. Yeah. No, we can still say Cincinnati.
Right.
Yeah. So do you remember buying any physical prop stuff, or were you just into cards right out of the gate?
I think the first couple of things that I had gotten, I mean, playing cards were accessible because they were the more affordable options.
Sure.
You buy a sterling silver cups and balls set, you're looking at,
Right.
$800.
Yeah.
It's just not practical for, 15-year-old.
Sure.
So I definitely bought, I remember The Code by Andy Nyman.
Yeah.
One that Jeff had recommended to me very early on.
Okay.
And that got me into a lot of my memorized work.
Okay.
And a lot of real sleight of hand applications of that.
Sure.
Then there was the Toolbox by
I
Simon
remember.
Lavelle.
Yes.
That 8 DVD set, I
Right.
think, was on sale for $45. I think it went retail for like 80 something.
Sounds right. Yeah.
And I bought that and watched that until the DVDs burned out. I remember
that's crazy.
practicing the tricks and learning all the moves, and there were some seriously difficult moves done in those DVDs because it went from like absolute beginner all the way to expert extreme.
Sure.
That's how they rated it.
Okay.
And
This is all cards, right?
all cards,
Okay.
all sleight of hand.
Okay.
And I watched those DVDs and came back and showed it to fellow magicians and like, keep working.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And that kind of behavior was so instrumental because it allowed me to not rest on just 1 month of practice or whatever. I mean, I've gotten to the point because of certain influences from Garrett Thomas to Ricky Jay, the people who practiced for years before showing a single person.
Right.
I really admire that sort of dedication, and now I try and put that into my work as much as possible.
Right. And and I think knowing, I mean, that is always a hard, this is again why it's great to hang out with magicians, is because like you never really know when it's ready for prime time.
Right.
But the baby step is like, once you feel confident doing it in front of another human being, at least make that human being be a magician,
right,
who can be nice to you if it doesn't look good or work, and or give you constructive criticism to make sure that you can keep improving.
Or in the case of my friends, say, that's terrible, get back to it.
There you go.
It's important to be brutally honest, especially for a kid, because magic oftentimes is that first thing that elevates a kid's ego who doesn't have one just yet.
Right.
Like, I can do this and you can't, and that becomes a real sticking point for a lot of kids and a lot of professional magicians who never get out of that habit.
No, it's true. That is a hard one, but it's interesting. Like, it does sound like because you got into it as like, this is entertaining my sister, and then that expanded, I'm sure, to this is entertaining other people.
Right.
You were never really using it as like a social crutch.
I definitely did try it.
Okay. Well, tell me about that.
The first time I ever performed for a person that was outside of family or friends, a complete stranger, I was out to lunch with a friend of mine, and he noticed me checking out this girl who had dyed her hair like this red, but it was like red in layers, so it looked like it was on fire. It was actually really interesting and really attractive. And my friend notices I'm staring at her while we're at Panera Bread,
Uh,
and he's like, you should do some card tricks." And
okay.
I don't know, 14 at the time. I hadn't even gone to the magic shop yet. This was like
Okay.
brand new territory for me.
Sure.
Like, I'm not gonna go. That's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
I was right.
Yeah.
So I had a brand new deck of cards. Again, I didn't know much about playing cards or quality.
Okay.
I'd bought a Maverick deck of cards from Walmart.
Yes.
And for the listener at home, Maverick playing cards are about as cheap and terrible as you can get when it comes to playing cards.
Yeah.
So I had introduced myself, explained my friend wanted me to do a magic trick for you, right? To this girl and her friend. And I had tried to open a new deck of cards, and I couldn't get it open. It was completely like wrapped shut, like
Right. Okay. Yep.
a vault or something.
Fine.
And so her being very kind grabs her car keys and tries and open it that way because there's no pull tab on this. It's just sealed like a wrapped present.
Okay.
And she couldn't get it open with car keys. And so finally, I take the keys and like really just cut right through the box altogether
Okay.
to get this over with. And I did like a 2-card Monty thing. I don't even remember if it was successful, but I left with my tail between my legs.
Sure.
I was like, I'm never doing that ever again. It was not a good first time, but extremely educational because I got very used to practicing after that because boy did I need more preparation for even details like you were saying.
Right.
Learning to open a box of cards efficiently
Right.
is something no magician would practice or think to practice at
Sure.
that age. And now I teach my students how to open a deck of cards efficiently if they're opening a new deck of cards.
Gotcha.
It's one of the first things I do because there's
That's
an order of operations
Right.
that really clean that up and avoid mistakes that I've gone through horrifically.
Right.
I'm sure that girl is convinced that magic is horrible from this point forward because she's like, the only magic trick I ever saw was just terrible.
Right. Well, she certainly knows you're not good at escapes. Like
Yeah, definitely.
Timothy's not good about getting out of things. Right. But once you open the deck of cards for him, then you can
Exactly.
you can do some cool stuff. Yeah. No, I think that's well. Have you did that shy? Have you done it since? Like in terms of interacting with people using magic as an icebreaker, or have you
much?
Okay, yeah.
I don't feel I need to. A lot of people do it only because it's that social icebreaker, that social lubricant.
Sure.
Make things a little bit easier and smoother. But yeah. I think because of my mentors and teachers that I took lessons from, I realized that hiding behind it as a sort of mask, which is what Garrett Thomas is always talking to young magicians about, is being careful about hiding your ego behind a skill that you don't have to show any personality through. You can do a card trick and just do a card trick and you're known as the magic guy, and you never actually explain, no, I'm a person and I do other things as well and I have a personality.
Okay.
You don't have to strictly do that with magic trick because it's impressive on its own.
Right. Sure.
Trying to ward against that, one of his pieces of advice was have an actual conversation with people before you explain that you're a magician and then do a magic trick, and then they get a sense of who you are.
Right.
And then if your magic even better, you'll learn to have your magic tailored to your personality, what you like, and your interests.
Okay.
Then people are like, okay, it's all connected. It's not disjointed.
Right.
You don't learn that when you're 13, by the way.
Oh yeah, no. That's
years later.
Yeah, well, I'm trying. Like, I don't ever remember a time where I used a magic trick as like an icebreaker to connect with someone. Like, even as a kid, I'm racking my brains trying to think about like, was there, but like I was always more interested in like parlor and stage stuff than close up. And obviously like I have picked up and do close up now, but like I'm also not the guy leaving the house with something in my pocket. Like it's just never.
I've got a deck of cards on me right now.
I would be sad if you didn't. That's your calling card, But yeah, but it was, and I think, I wonder if you felt this way as also. Like I've been around in social situations with magician friends who did use it as a social crutch awkwardly, I felt.
Oh yeah.
And that for me has been quite the turnoff, where even if I could navigate those waters better than my friend did, I still like just being in that situation where the person clearly didn't want to see a trick and they still got to, you know?
Yeah. Reading the room is a very critical skill that magicians again, because they train themselves inadvertently to hide behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
They don't know how to listen to a person and have a real interaction before they do any magic tricks. Because again, you don't need to, strictly speaking, if you're going to do
Right.
a trick that always gets a reaction, because
Sure.
that's how they're marketed. They don't have any reason to actually check in on the person and say, "Do you actually want to see this?"
Yeah.
Who would start with that?
Sure.
Because that is, it's just too uncomfortable for most people to start there.
Yeah, well, and also sort of understanding not just the room but the social contract. Like I've seen friends do magic tricks for like servers at a restaurant, and that's always a funky, like, it's this person's job to make sure that you have a good time here today. So they're sort of obligated to say, it's sort of like, hey, would you mind taking a photo of me and my friend? Even if they do mind and they're totally behind and they need to get to the kitchen, they'll still take a photo because they would like a tip from you, you know? And so unfortunately, magic can sometimes fall into that same category, you know?
Definitely.
But yeah, so then I'm interested in, as you're, you're interested in the shiny things that are in the magic shop, but sort of as a financial and ease of carrying reasoning, you get into the playing card. Do you get into like coins? Like, do you other small object type tricks, or are you pretty much cards from the get-go?
Definitely cards the majority of the time. The first coin trick that I learned, which is still a coin trick that I practice on a regular basis, was something I saw from a YouTube video. Imagination Coins by Garrett Thomas.
Right.
And I saw that at, I think I was 13, 14.
Okay.
And I had no idea it was available for purchase.
Oh.
I had just seen the trailer of it, which should have told me that it was available for purchase, but I didn't connect the dots. I just thought it was a demonstration of real magic.
Okay.
Because I saw that and thought it was the closest thing to real magic as I'd ever witnessed.
Cool. Okay.
Turns out I was right. It really is the best trick. And when I found out it was just on the shelf at the magic shop, I dropped $40 then and there.
There you go.
I watched that DVD so many times. I did burn that one out as well.
Okay.
That'll be a common thread. Most of my DVDs aren't watchable anymore.
Maybe your DVD player is just really hot. We need to like air condition your DVD. I'm seeing a trend.
Water cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, I'd studied that trick for, I think, something like 2 years before I showed anybody.
Okay.
Because I had just watched, around that same time, I'd watched Ricky Jay Plays Poker.
Oh.
And it is such an instrumental video, because in that he was talking about how much he practices.
Yeah.
And he was scolding a friend of his, an actor, I believe, and had said, I practice for at least a year before I show anyone anything I'm doing.
Right.
And I was like, so that's how the real guys do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that's what I did with Imagination Coins. I went a little bit overboard because I was very nervous. It's a very intricate trick.
Okay.
And so I practiced for about 2 years. And then in that time, I had gone to the magic shop and met other magicians. And Jeff had mentioned that, Garrett was a magician around from Buffalo, New York, and I could probably get a hold of him if I needed to. And I found him on Facebook.
Nice. Okay.
And so I remember sending him a message thanking him profusely for the creation of this trick, because it was my favorite trick. It still is. And he was very complimentary. He responded almost immediately.
Awesome.
He's very gracious and kind. And I had asked if there were other things that I should know, or some tips, because I had watched the DVD so many times that you kind of get a little bit tunnel visioned when it comes to like a single source of information, especially one that's recorded.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know if there were any new developments for the trick, anything that I was missing, common problems people have performing it. That's cool. And I asked Garrett all of these questions, and he answered every single one in kind.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing. It was the first really incredible interaction that I had with a magician online.
Right.
And then he had mentioned, this is a few months later, he was doing a lecture in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I told my dad, like, my favorite magician is going to be in Philadelphia, which is about a 2-hour rough drive.
Sure.
I have to see this lecture. I will pay for my ticket, and I will buy my dad's ticket, and I'll pay for the gas. I was really pushing to see this lecture. And my dad was kind enough and always so supportive, and he said, let's go. So he took off, basically dropped everything he was doing. We we found the time, we left early, and I've always been of the opinion that you have to practice enough to not waste the teacher's time.
That's great. Yep.
Because it's always been a pet peeve of mine sitting in other lectures where a person will ask, how do you do this move? And it's perfectly explained in the book, and they clearly never read it.
Yeah,
or the DVD is like, okay, so how do you hold the deck of cards at this moment?
Right.
Like, it's the first, cover the basis, really understand what you're doing before you get to the teacher. Because again, if you go to a professor in college and say, I'm trying to understand this aspect of your teaching, he says, it's in the textbook I wrote here.
Right.
You've totally wasted the interaction and left a very bad first impression.
That's fair.
And I would have been so careful of people that I admire and look up to not do that. And so I practiced this individual trick for a very long time before that, and I wanted one-on-one time. So I had saved up a lot of money to do this. I paid for the lecture, paid for my dad's ticket, and set aside money for gas and a dinner because I invited Garrett, if he was available, let's go to dinner before the lecture because I want to ask questions in private and not monopolize the time at a lecture because everyone else bought a ticket to see the lecture.
Sure.
And it wouldn't be right for me to monopolize the whole section with the 1.5 million questions I had about this trick. And my dad was very supportive and actually had given me that advice initially was, basically buy the teacher's time.
Yeah.
And then make sure that it's worth their time.
Right.
And by actually putting in the work, right? Proving
and your time. I mean, don't ask questions you know the answer to just to feel smarter, but ask questions that will actually help you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was a big influence on me. So we went, set up for the lecture. We drove there. And the main road to the theater that the lecture was held at was like closed off.
Oh no!
And we had to backtrack almost all the way around the city to get to the theater because it's impossible to find this place. The Smoke and Mirrors Theater in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Really hard to find that place for the first time driving there.
Sure.
And we missed our dinner appointment. I'm texting Garrett apologizing profusely. And he's like, no worries, I just got dinner with some friends. No big deal. I'll see you at the lecture. He was, again, gracious and kind and patient.
Okay.
So sweet. And we went to the lecture. I think we were maybe 15 minutes early, which is not how my dad operates. If you're not 30 minutes early, you're late.
Right. Yep.
That's always how he's taught everything to me.
Yeah.
And that's how I operate too.
Yeah.
So we got to the lecture about 15 minutes early, and I'm anxious thinking we missed something or Garrett's upset with me or something.
Yeah.
And I'm hanging out in the corner with all these other magicians I didn't know. My dad's there. And then Dad kind of just points over my shoulder, and right next to me is Garrett Thomas. And my reaction is, oh my God, he just appeared out of nowhere.
Right,
which is such a good first impression for a magician. Like you just pop into it.
There you go. Nice.
Scared the bejesus out of me. And he introduces himself to my dad.
Okay.
And he's just chatting. And he stops for a second, shows his hand empty, and then closes it. And now there's a coin there. And
just cause.
Just because he's Garrett.
Yeah.
And my reaction was, oh my God, there's a coin there. I just said it out loud because it's so visual and so impossible.
That's great.
And my dad's just, freaking out over this too. And he was like, you should get some seats because I bought the front row seats and, really wanted the experience. So there I am sitting in front of the lecture.
Yeah.
My dad and I, and Garrett goes through the whole thing. He teaches imagination coins as a kind of an overview of things. And I still learned a lot because Garrett always knows what's on the content for the DVD. So he covers the things that people could commonly miss.
Smart. Yeah.
And then he kind of pitched all of his other stuff. The way a magic lecture usually works is it's just a sales pitch for all the products that he sells afterwards.
Yeah.
And I bought everything from that lecture. I made all the ring stuff, the decks of cards, just all of it.
Okay.
I must have spent what seemed like a fortune to me then, maybe close to $300.
Wow. Well, you didn't have to buy him dinner at least.
Right.
So you had all this money burning a hole in your pocket,
Exactly. So I bought a little bit of everything.
Oh, nice.
Practiced it all for years. Thank Garrett profusely. It was just an incredible experience.
That's
And
awesome.
I have Garrett to thank and my father to thank for driving me, because he also
Yeah.
was very kind enough to say, you can, because I wanted to spend a little bit more money at the lecture. He's like,
yeah.
I'll cover the gas.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
so that was just
Okay.
so sweet.
That's great.
Still remember that very fondly. That was a great time.
Super supportive. Yeah,
Very.
yeah. That's awesome. Well, yeah, no, I definitely I want to have you back on because I have a lot of questions, in particular like mentorship and that sort of thing. But we're gonna have to save that for next time. But for everyone who is listening, if you haven't been watching on a screen somewhere, if you want to follow Timothy's adventures on Instagram, you can go to Timothy Loves Magic, and you can see all sorts of when you're out and about doing stuff or showing up to places or whatever you're working on. That's a great follow. Thank you for coming and hanging out here. This was fun.
Glad to be here.
And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast of the Impossible. But for behind the scenes access to my Museum of the Impossible project, as well as info about my public shows and private events, social media, and more, you can head on over to peterwood.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.